Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever wondered how a decision made halfway around the world can affect the price of your coffee? Well, today we're going to break down the massive, complex machine that is the global economy. And we're going to do it in just about 5 minutes. All right, let's jump right in. So, the big question is, how did we get here? Right? How did our world become this one giant, tangled up economy where everything seems to affect everything else? Well, it really boils down to one huge, powerful idea that has totally shaped the modern world. And that big idea is globalization. Now, I know, it's a word we hear thrown around all the time, but what does it actually mean when we're talking about economics? Okay, so here's the key takeaway. Globalization is all about the world economy acting less like a bunch of separate countries and more like one single massive unit. And that word right there, interdependence, that is everything. It means what happens in one place sends real, actual ripples out across the entire planet. But, and this is a big but, this single global unit isn't the same everywhere. Not at all. It's made up of a whole bunch of different players, and they're all at really different stages of their economic journey. So let's kind of map them out. So if you zoom way out, the world is often split into two main groups. On one side, you've got the advanced industrialized economies, what people often call the West. And by the way, that includes places like Japan and Australia too. And on the other side, you have the less developed countries, or LDCs, which are on a totally different track. But it is super important to know that LDC isn't just one thing. It's a huge spectrum. You've got rural economies with almost no industry on one end, all the way to what we call newly industrialized countries, or NICs, that are building up their industrial strength like crazy. And listen, this isn't just theory. This stuff really happens. Just look at the Asian tigers. These were nations that went through such explosive growth that they totally transformed their economies. In some cases, they're now right up there with the wealth of the West. It just goes to show you that these labels are definitely not permanent. And just a quick side note on the words we use, you've probably heard the term third world before. Well, that's pretty much considered outdated now. Today, you're a lot more likely to hear people talk about the economic split between the North and the South to describe that same idea. So we've got our players mapped out. But how do we actually keep score in this global game? How do we measure which countries are doing well and which aren't? Well, the headline number you'll almost always see is GDP per capita. It's actually pretty simple. You take a country's entire economic output for a year, that's the gross domestic product, and then you just divide it by the number of people who live there. It gives you a kind of rough average for each person. But hold on a second. This is where we need to think a little deeper. Does a big, flashy national number automatically mean that every single person in that country has a great standard of living? Well, as you can probably guess, the answer is a big no. And that's because of this one crucial factor: income distribution. A country can have a monster GDP, but if all that money is just sitting in the pockets of a few people at the top, life for the average person might not be very good at all. You see, how the pie is sliced is just as important as how big the pie is. Now, to get an even clearer picture, economists will sometimes use another metric, GNI, or gross national income. The key difference here is that GDP only measures what's made inside a country's borders. GNI, on the other hand, also counts the money coming in from foreign investments. It gives you a much broader look at a nation's total income. All right, so we get what globalization is, we know who the players are, and we know how it's measured. But what's the engine behind it all? What forces are actually pushing this whole thing forward? People who support globalization usually point to four key drivers. First, you've got the free movement of capital. That's just money for investments flowing easily across borders. Then there's trade liberalization, countries lowering taxes to make it easier to buy and sell stuff internationally. But the next two are the ones that have had a massive physical impact on our world. First, let's talk about moving actual stuff. Now, this might sound boring, but I promise you, it's not. The humble shipping container completely revolutionized the world. By standardizing how we move goods, containerization made shipping so incredibly cheap that costs just plummeted. It blew global trade wide open. So at the very same time that moving physical things got cheaper, moving information became practically free. Think about it. The incredible drop in the cost of telecommunications and computers has connected markets, businesses, and just regular people in an instant. So the core belief here, from the folks who champion globalization is that these powerful forces, capital, trade, and technology, are an engine for progress. The argument is that they're just going to keep driving economic growth and spreading prosperity all around the world. So there you have it. These incredible forces have woven our world together in ways that were once unimaginable, lifting millions of people up. But as this deeply connected world keeps changing, the biggest question is still out there. What comes next?